The truth about microdosing. You may have recently heard about widespread use of hallucinogens or psychedelics to promote psychological well-being. Some people are now using very minimal doses of these medications to become more energized and recreational. Microdosing, which refers to these brief hits, is swiftly gaining popularity. Everyone from those in the IT business to artists is now experimenting with psychoactive substances in the hopes of boosting professional performance, insight, and well-being. Previously, it was a practice done in secret, but now it's very prevalent in mainstream media. So, what exactly is microdosing, and how does it work? Let's find out. Numerous individuals are searching for methods to enhance their happiness, comfort, and quality of life. People are currently experimenting with microdosing in light of this. The problem is that there isn't a single, widely accepted definition of microdosing for any psychedelic substance, which makes it difficult to do consistent research. A medium-strength psilocybin dose is 2 to 3 grams of dried mushrooms, whereas a microdose is typically around 0.3 grams. According to one definition, a microdose is roughly 1/5 to 1/20th of a recreational dose. From what we can gather, it simply involves taking a little dose of a prohibited psychedelic substance like LSD or psilocybin nearly every day. Some people truly believe that microdosing can improve their mood and creativity. Microdosing is now referred to as the productivity hack and is extremely popular among major corporations and engineers in diverse tech startups. In contrast to traditional treatments, a single dose of this drug appeared to significantly lessen anxiety and depression in cancer patients who were facing a serious diagnosis. The psychedelic substance found in magic mushrooms, psilocybin, has proven to be the most effective drug for microdosing. For the same effects, microdosing takes frequent, minuscule doses of LSD or magic mushrooms. They claim to get a boost in creativity that can improve work efficiency, help relationships, and significantly improve a hectic and demanding daily life at such minute doses. But they do not experience mind-bending, hallucinogenic trips. If you're wondering how it all began, microdosing has been practiced for a very long time. It has been a long-standing idea. A few psychedelic therapists in Saskatchewan's mental hospital in the 1950s aimed to assist alcoholics in quitting drinking. They led the patients through an ego-destructive, high-dose LSD encounter. Over half of the participants claimed to have fully recovered from their alcoholism when they were done. The Canadian government was fascinated by this and ordered more rigorous experiments, this time without the seasoned trip guides advising how patients should feel. This trial was indeed a failure. In the aftermath, psychedelic therapy was deemed by many as more myth than medicine. Equally significant to the medicine itself are the user's thoughts and the therapist's recommendations. In other words, LSD's effects were influenced by events both inside and outside the brain. Now onto the main question. Is microdosing really good? Or are we missing something here? The media is currently paying a great deal of attention to microdosing. These medications are becoming more widely accepted after being once ridiculed as unsafe and destructive. Psilocybin's use for therapeutic or recreational purposes is gradually being legalized or decriminalized in a plethora of states and American cities. But the truth is that there isn't sufficient proof to say that microdosing is advantageous or even reliable just yet. Up until now, it's been impossible to distinguish between hype and reality. This is due to the fact that, until recently, microdoses weren't investigated in placebo-controlled studies. The first placebo-controlled microdose experiment was released toward the end of last year. The study found that LSD microdoses significantly affected respondents' perceptions of time, enabling them to more precisely replicate elapsed periods of time. The study begins to piece together a convincing picture of how LSD affects the brain's perceptual and cognitive systems, in a way that may promote more creativity and focus, even when it does not prove that microdoses operate as a revolutionary stress reducer. Some scientists are making an effort to rigorously evaluate the claims, since the phenomenon has gained so much attention and because they're so fascinating. In 2018, a team of psychologists at Goldsmiths, University of London, led by Devin Terhune, released the first microdosing placebo-controlled trial. Terhune enlisted participants who hadn't used LSD in the previous 5 years and divided the volunteers into placebo and LSD microdose groups at random. Terhune began by answering a seemingly straightforward but extremely difficult query. Do you feel a microdose of LSD? Microdoses are often described as subperceptive in many online references. In other words, you don't really experience the effects of the drug. As a result, LSD microdoses resemble an antidepressant such as Prozac, more than a legitimately psychedelic substance like marijuana. Does this imply that microdosing enhances intelligence? Terhune and his co-authors were careful not to misrepresent their research. Due to some unknown reasons, the brain appears to favour underrepresenting time. But for some daily activities or creative endeavours, it may be advantageous to alter the brain's default representation of time. The connection between time perception and cognitive function needs to be explored further, because that is not currently clear. Despite not producing a significant drug experience, the results do demonstrate that microdoses alter brain activity in some way. So what consequently relies on these studies? In simplicity, a lot of things are at stake for our overall understanding of the brain and the possibility that medications could enhance cognitive ability. Microdoses of psychedelics don't make your ego disappear like huge doses do, but they may activate the precise number of receptors needed for us to be our best selves through simple pharmacology. But keep in mind that antidepressant users are not suitable for psychedelic therapy, since their brains are already oversaturated with serotonin from other mood-altering medications, which blocks the receptors that psychedelics bind to. Dustin Hines, PhD, an assistant professor of neuroscience in the Department of Psychology at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, said one difficulty for this kind of research is accurately identifying the size of that dose. People aim for normal cognitive functioning when establishing a microdose in order to continue to perform their responsibilities, whether at work or elsewhere, without suffering any bad effects. As a result, a microdose may differ from person to person and scenario to scenario. Age, gender, pre-study mental health, and other types of therapy are a few other aspects that researchers are still unable to fully account for in terms of how they can influence the results. These kinds of factors might also have an impact on how each person reacts uniquely to psilocybin. Additionally, a microdose may have quite different effects on someone with high levels of anxiety compared to someone with high levels of depression. So, does microdosing really work? In short, the verdict is still pending. While some studies are far more persuasive and reveal a very substantial and large advantage from microdosing, others are much less convincing and show little to no benefit. One recent study compared 953 psilocybin microdoses to 180 non-users for 30 days using a naturalistic observational design, and discovered modest to moderate gains in mood and mental health that were largely constant across gender, age, and the existence of mental health issues. Other research on microdosing is substantially less impressive. Low-dose psilocybin mushrooms do not seem to offer objective proof of gains in creativity, well-being, or cognitive function, despite some fascinating subjective effects and even some alterations in brainwaves being captured on an EEG machine. So, should one microdose or not? To begin with, microdosing is not intended to make you high. While it is ultimately up to the individual to make their own choices regarding their health and lifestyle, anyone considering using psychedelics should consult a physician first and rule out any underlying medical conditions. It is crucial to think about the legality and caliber of the product being used. Overall, the conclusion is that, despite the emphasis on microdosing, it is still too early to determine the full effects of consuming small amounts of hallucinogens. Although there isn't much evidence to back up the use of microdosing, there have been many studies on psychedelics effects. It's critical to refrain from risky and unlawful activity for the time being and concentrate on tried and true methods to improve your mental health and well-being. It's also essential to understand that there isn't currently undeniable proof that microdosing is in any way beneficial or even secure over the long term. With these considerations in mind, it is reasonable to state that psychedelic drugs are experiencing a rebirth of research and are becoming more understood.